In the kingdom of haunting hunger, a fat boy stands out and shines the brightest, quite literally. North Korea's current supreme leader, Kim Jong-un, is as recognized for his expanding waistline as he is for his unique leadership style. While millions in his country struggle with undernourishment, Kim projects an image of conspicuous corpulence. Is this simply unchecked indulgence, or is there a method to the mass control? In this deep dive episode, we explore how Kim's obesity has been engineered into a form of political theatre, a carefully curated symbol aimed at bolstering his legitimacy, crafting a domestic mythos, and sending a heavyweight message to the world. The idea may sound absurd, big fat butt as propaganda? Yet, under the surreal logic of North Korean statecraft, Kim's girth plays a part in his performance of power. We will guide you through several heavy-hitting topics, from Kim's calculated resemblance he bears to his revered grandfather, to the stark contrast between feast and famine in North Korea. It's about Kim's luxurious diet that he inherited from Europe, and how his fatness functions as PR in a starving nation. Remember, in the grand theatre of North Korean politics, even the leader's waistline has a role to play. The size of the supreme leader is no small matter. So sit back, maybe grab a cheese plate in support and solidarity of the leader, and let's dig in.
Kim Jong-un is thought to be in his late 20s, educated in Switzerland, a huge fan of American professional basketball. But he is virtually unknown even to the people here. He had never even been named by the official state media until last week. But the North Koreans we spoke with, always in the presence of our government minder, were approving.
Will he make a good leader?
No question, said Ri Young Kwang, a 35-year-old photographer. I believe in him.
Kim Jong-un was not exactly born into an easy gig. When he inherited the leadership in late 2011, he was a 20-something-year-old somebody who grew up in peacetime, with no war medals and no public acknowledgement. The daddy Kim just recovered from the 2008 deadly stroke and knew his time was coming. Time was precious for the succession plan. In a society that venerates age and the wisdom that comes with maturity, Kim's youth was seen as a critical demerit. North Korean elders had spent decades under the iron rule of Kim's grandfather and father, both of whom had earned credentials in some ways. One was literally a guerrilla war hero who fought the Japanese and was backed by the Soviets. The other had been groomed for decades and led the people through the Cold War crises, though not so successfully. By contrast, Kim Jong-un's resume was painfully thin, and that's not only because of his age. He had never led troops in battle, never survived a national crisis on his watch. To many observers in 2011, it seemed unthinkable that military generals in their 70s would truly accept orders from a chubby kid in his late 20s. Predictions abounded that this baby marshal would be quickly pushed aside, or that a second dynastic succession simply wouldn't fly. The odds of collapse, or even a coup, appeared higher than ever. Our little Kim was well aware of this legitimacy problem, and so was the regime's propaganda machine. From day one, state media hailed him with lofty titles like Young Marshal, Great Successor, Supreme Commander, as if trying to will public confidence into existence. But honorifics alone couldn't erase the obvious. Kim lacked the gravitas of any elder statesman and those miracle tales that his predecessors enjoyed. Kim Jong-un had literally grown up in a cocoon of indulgence and privilege, far from any struggle. The young Kim spent his teens not in the barracks or the halls of Pyongyang's political schools, but at a Swiss boarding school, enjoying ski trips in the Alps and shooting hoops on Swiss basketball courts. In fact, during the arduous mid-90s famine, when millions of North Koreans starved, Kim Jong-un was living abroad in comfort, feasting on cheese and chocolate fondue, while his future subjects wasted away. In short, upon inheriting the kingdom, little Jong-un needed to manufacture legitimacy. If he couldn't have a heroic past, he could only double down on dynastic legitimacy. He reminded everyone that he was the only legitimate Kim through and through. The blood of Mount Paektu ran in his veins. In practice, this meant crafting an image that connected him viscerally to the beloved founder, Kim Il-sung. Become a living echo of his grandfather, in looks, in style, and yes, even in body shape. Kim Jong-un's very body would become a political tool to bridge the legitimacy gap. The propaganda machine needed a chubby Kim. So it wasn't by chance that North Koreans, upon seeing Kim Jong-un emerge in 2012, felt a jolt of recognition. With his stocky build, round face, and a haircut suspiciously similar to a young Kim Il-sung's signature coif, the new leader seemed almost like Kim Il-sung reborn. This was careful political stagecraft. Kim Il-sung, the nation's founding great leader, remains the most revered figure in North Korea, remembered fondly by older generations as a larger-than-life patriarch. By resembling him, Kim Jong-un could tap into that reservoir of public adulation. The young Kim deliberately styled himself after his grandfather, right down to the extra kilograms. South Korean intelligence speculated that Kim Jong-un was intentionally gaining weight to mirror Kim Il-sung's portly stature. As absurd as it sounds, this theory has garnered credible backing. Cho Myung-chul, a North Korean defector turned politician, remarked that there is a high chance Mr. Kim intentionally gained weight to look like Kim Il-sung. If you're not convinced, consider the timeline. Kim Jong-un weighed about 90 kilos, that's 198 pounds, when he took power in 2011. Within a few years, his weight ballooned dramatically. Estimates put him at 120 kilograms by 2014, and still climbing. For the young Kim, this rapid gain wasn't a middle-age spread, but appeared very strategic. By 2016, he was roughly 130 kilos, that's over 285 pounds, carrying an imposing heft on his very average East Asian stature. Observers couldn't help but notice how much Kim's silhouette, broad shoulders, double chin, and you name it, now resembled his grandfather's in later years. It was a visual cue that the great leader's spirit lives on in his grandson. When Kim stood at podiums or in military parades, older North Koreans could squint and recall the familiar paunch and presence of Kim Il-sung, the father of the nation. The underlying message was clear: fat is good, only if you are the supreme leader. Carrying extra pounds was not a sign of sloth or gluttony. It was a sign of continuity and power. After all, in North Korean imagery, Kim Il-sung's stout figure was associated with his paternal benevolence, a big body harboring a big heart for his people. Of course, there were practical side effects to this extreme makeover. As early as 2014, footage showed him limping at public events, reportedly due to strained ankles from the added weight. North Korean state media made a rare admission then, saying the marshal was suffering an uncomfortable physical condition, apparently foot injuries from grueling military field visits. Well, We just leave it to the propaganda machine to spin obesity-related foot pain into a badge of honor for working too hard. But these costs were acceptable in service of the greater narrative. By fattening himself up, Kim was fattening up his myth. He could pose for portraits looking like a youthful version of Grandpa Kim, jacket straining at the buttons, projecting confidence and familiarity. For a young leader with a thin resume, becoming a thicker version of a national hero was possibly the best shortcut to loyalty.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un recently attended a groundbreaking ceremony for a new mega farm in the east of the country. He said the aim of the project is to grow more vegetables and to improve people's diet. It comes at a time of worsening food shortages. In a report last October, the UN said people's access to food there is, quote, a serious concern, and that some children and the elderly are at, quote, risk of starvation.
Man, being the only fat ass in a country of millions of undernourished kids must be feeling great and exceptional. Kim's cultivated chubbiness carries a heavy irony when viewed against the backdrop of North Korea's chronic food insecurity. This is a country that knows famine all too well, where the state TV once offered a cooking recipe of tree bark. In the 1990s, North Korea was struck by a catastrophic famine, euphemistically called the Arduous March, that killed an estimated 1 million people, about 5% of the population, just in the span of 4 years. Millions were reduced to eating grass, tree bark, and whatever they could forage. Images from that era showed emaciated children and stunted growth, a stark contrast to the well-fed appearance of the leadership. That famine's legacy casts a long shadow. North Koreans who grew up in the 90s are, on average, notably shorter and smaller than their South Korean counterparts, a grim biological record of prolonged malnutrition. And remember, Kim Jong-un, born in 1984, grew up in the famine, technically speaking.
North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, faces a dire food shortage. Its harvest in the past year was virtually destroyed by floods that occurred in August of 2007. What this means is the country now does not have enough food to feed its people.
Fast forward to today, and the food situation, while not as visibly apocalyptic as the 90s, remains dire. North Korea in the early 2020s, before Putin extended that olive branch, was again teetering on the edge of a serious food crisis. The World Food Programme reports that, as of recent years, an estimated 10.7 million North Koreans, over 40% of the population, are undernourished and in need of humanitarian food assistance. In plain terms, almost half the country doesn't get enough to eat, and many children are not growing properly because they lack essential nutrients. North Korea's official distribution system deliberately provides much lower food rations than the minimum daily requirement, forcing families to rely on private markets or barter to survive. In rural areas, diets are especially poor. People scrounge for wild foods or depend on relatives' help to fill the gap. The country's own regime has at times tacitly admitted trouble. For instance, Kim Jong-un himself acknowledged a tense food situation in 2021 due to crop failures. Hunger is a daily reality for a huge portion of the population. Now place Kim Jong-un in the middle of this picture. A young man who, by his late 20s, was visibly overweight and by his 30s positively obese. The contrast could not be more jarring. Kim embodies excess calories in a nation where many count calories by necessity. He stands as a living antithesis to the struggles of his people. This contrast is not something lost on North Koreans. It's just not something they can openly discuss. Implicitly, the regime turned Kim's apparent abundance into a symbol of state strength. To propagandists, seeing a rotund leader touring a village could suggest, Our country must be doing well if our marshal is so healthy and well fed. It's the feudal logic centuries ago. A Kim's heft was seen as proof of prosperity and divine favor. Since everybody else from his generation had a very hungry childhood, Kim's luxuriant physique sets him apart as almost superhuman. The girth would be a political liability elsewhere, since obesity might signal poor discipline or ill health. But in the Kimdom, it is spun as an emblem of robust leadership. He looks like stability incarnate, unmovable, bulging with authority and abundance. North Korean propaganda has long portrayed its leaders as the nurturing father figures of the people. And in a literal sense, Kim looks the part of the well-fed father of a malnourished family. His body says, "There is food, I took some of it, and by my grace, eventually you will enjoy some too." Meanwhile, the elite circles around Kim live in a bubble of relative plenty, even as ordinary folks scrape by. There were two North Koreas, one of extreme privilege centered around the Kim family, and one of extreme privation for everyone else. Kim Jong-un inherited not only the throne, but also this feast amidst famine dynamic. Being groomed to rule, little Kim showed his cold-bloodedness and dictatorial talent since he was a kid. In the brutal logic of the Kim, the leader must starve the nation, making people have no energy to revolt and beg the leader for a patch of rice. And thus, the Kims rule. So, the pattern persists from the great leader to the supreme leader. The World Food Programme has been feeding vulnerable North Koreans since 1995, yet at the same time, shipments of imported luxury foods and liquors for the Pyongyang elite never stopped. Kim's obesity, viewed in this light, is almost a provocation of contrast, a walking reminder that while a child in Hamgyong province might be stunted from malnutrition, the leader in Pyongyang has never missed a meal. North Korea is perhaps the only country where starvation and obesity coexist as state policy. For Kim, indulging in excess while his people tighten their belts isn't hypocrisy in the regime's eyes. It's ideology. It's the theater of plenty. By looking overnourished, Kim reassures his subjects that the regime is successful in providing something, at least to those who matter. And if ordinary folks aspire to partake in that plenty, the subtext is clear. Remain loyal, and maybe some of the banquet crumbs will trickle down. In the meantime, the privileged plumpness of the supreme leader remains on full display.
As 1 out of every 3 children in North Korea suffers to some extent from malnutrition. We're very concerned that this year the food shortfall of 1,600,000 tons of rice and wheat will mean that malnutrition will increase and that children will receive less food than they are really needing to receive.
We already know the purpose of being fat, but what exactly fuels Kim Jong-un's formidable physique? Reports of his diet over the years paint a picture of nearly cartoonish excess, as if a Bond villain were let loose in a food hall. One oft-cited favorite is Emmental cheese, that mild, hole-riddled Swiss cheese, which Kim allegedly fell in love with during his school days in Switzerland. It's said that after returning to Pyongyang, he never lost the taste. In fact, Kim has been known to import Emmental in bulk to satisfy his cravings. According to intelligence leaks, he even tried to have North Korean chefs trained in France in the art of cheesemaking, presumably so he could have a domestic supply of his beloved dairy drug. But his cheese obsession continued to grow. As we mentioned, by 2014, he was reportedly suffering from bouts of gout, a painful condition historically nicknamed the rich man's disease. Overindulgence in high-fat foods, heavy alcohol consumption, and lack of exercise definitely contributed to his condition. In short, Kim ate and drank himself onto crutches, not just for propaganda purposes, but also as a lifestyle problem straight out of a medieval king's court. Cheese is just the appetizer. Kim's palate ranges widely and expensively. He is rumored to have a taste for fine liquors, much like his father, who was famous for being the single biggest Hennessy buyer in the world. Kim Jong-un's drink of choice? Expensive French wines, especially Bordeaux reds, if whispers are to be believed. One account claims that Kim once boasted of drinking 10 bottles of Bordeaux in a single night. It was an epic wine binge that even France's finest enophiles would not attempt. Excessive alcohol, perhaps, is part of his coping mechanism to deal with stress and paranoia, and it certainly contributes to his growing girth. Kim Jong-un has maintained the family tradition of gastronomic hedonism, perhaps even surpassing his gourmand daddy with his own twists. Imagine the scenes: lavish parties on Kim's private yacht or in one of his multiple mansions, with tables groaning under roast meats, sushi platters, imported liquors, and rich desserts. The Kims developed a taste for the finest seafood: giant lobsters, caviar, sea urchin. If it was rare and costly, it was on the menu. Due to his foreign upbringing, Kim is said to have a weakness for more casual foreign fare. While not always confirmed, rumors swirl that he has imported items like McDonald's hamburgers or had his chefs recreate fast food items he encountered abroad. His time in Switzerland exposed him to plenty of Western junk food, and some reports claim he still has a penchant for fried potato dishes and Swiss rosti, etc. Given his weight, one can easily envision midnight snacks of pizza or cake being part of the regimen. South Korea's spy agency reportedly monitored unusual imports of foreign snacks and gourmet foods to North Korea, items clearly destined for the top elite's consumption. These might include exquisite chocolates, specialty hams, or exotic spices that only Pyongyang's upper crust ever tastes. All this indulgence serves a propagandistic purpose when viewed through Pyongyang's lens. By flaunting his luxuries, Kim reinforces an internal narrative. Only the supreme leader lives this well because only he deserves it. It's a DPRK-style divine right narrative. The Kim family is so special, even their dining habits are above the laws of economics and sanctions. There have been reports in state media of Kim visiting food factories and giving guidance. For instance, critiquing candy at a factory or sampling soldier rations with a satisfied smile. The optics are always that he is the provider and taster-in-chief of the nation's food, who guarantees the food's quality and quantity for the masses. Never mind that his daily calorie intake likely rivals that of an entire North Korean family for a week. The state propaganda never directly shows Kim's meals, but the idea of his opulence is hinted at through anecdotes of him gifting fruit baskets or having sumptuous banquets with military officers. Here's one curious detail. In 2018, during diplomatic meetings, foreign delegations noted Kim Jong-un brought along his own personal toilet to summits to prevent intelligence agencies from examining his health from his stool. This odd factoid underscores how deeply his health and consumption are guarded secrets. His waste is literally classified. So, to be fair, what Kim really eats is an absolute national secret, and none of us knows. To sum up, it's a diet fit for a king, being consumed by a Kim who demands to be treated as more than a king, but a living god in his domain. The result of these feasts is written on his waistline. Each pound he gains paradoxically serves propaganda and his image-making. It's proof of plenty and evidence of invincibility. The Supreme Leader's obesity is a result of both political leader-making and his own uncontrolled desires. Kim quite literally embodies the message that North Korea is strong and abundant at its core. Look, our leader lacks nothing.
He seems to strain the bounds of his pinstripe suit as he inspects crops at a government farm. At one point, he strolls around with his jacket unbuttoned. These new photos of Kim Jong-un conducting a field inspection and visiting an orphanage have analysts taking a critical look tonight at the physical condition of North Korea's mercurial young leader.
He does not look healthy.
After the succession game, Kim kept being morbidly obese. It leads to a pivotal question. How does the propaganda machine say about Kim Jong-un's fatness? To our international observers, his obesity is a meme. But within North Korea, the propaganda apparatus has ingeniously repurposed what could be a vulnerability into a virtue. In the choreographed imagery of state media, Kim's body is deployed as a symbol of power, stability, and paternal benevolence. First, we must consider the cultural context. In Korean tradition, a plump figure historically signified wealth and well-being. In a country that has known scarcity for decades, seeing a portly leader subconsciously suggests that the nation is secure enough to keep its leader well-fed. There's almost a psychological comfort in that for people conditioned by famine. The leader's body is a barometer of national health. North Korean propaganda banks on this by ensuring Kim is always presented looking in control and satisfied. His uniforms are tailored to accommodate his bulk without strain. This visual dominance resonates with a population drilled to see him as the nation's pillar of support. Secondly, Kim's weight bolsters the father figure image the state cultivates. They often show him visiting kindergartens, orphanages, and barracks, embracing children and soldiers. The optics are almost deliberately Santa-esque. A round-faced man with a genial smile, patting the backs of kids, surrounded by adoring citizens. The state media portrayed the elder Kim Il-sung as the jolly grandfather who doted on children. Kim Jong-un slips into that same mold. Despite being much younger, he decisively decided to father the whole nation, like a classical patriarch, ensuring his children are taken care of. Size equals stature. His weight amplifies the aura of a man big enough to carry the country's burdens. Indeed, inside North Korea, nobody would dare mock Kim's appearance. Doing so is unthinkable and deadly. Instead, state media uses more flattering language. They won't say overweight, but use terms like majestic presence or refer to his dignified and robust health. In speeches and articles, they attribute his physique to things like hard work and devotion. There are images of Kim Jong-un inspecting something while using a cane. The state-run KCNA said he had been suffering discomfort after giving field guidance so strenuously, essentially turning an obesity-related ailment into a medal of labor. Moreover, Kim's corpulence conveys strength in a weird way. He literally throws his weight around on the world stage. North Korean media often show him unfazed by foreign leaders. Images of his 2018 summit with Donald Trump in Singapore show Kim as a stout, confident figure, a man even fatter than the sitting US president. It actually makes sense. Our leader couldn't make up the height gap, but certainly can match the heavyweight. In group photos with South Korean or Chinese officials, Kim's stature also sets him apart. Therefore, in camera, Kim Jong-un always looks like the center of gravity. His body creates a psychological effect. It imprints a subtle message into our brain. Our marshal is big and imposing. He dominates any room with any world leader. No one would confuse him for a subordinate in a photo op, as his weight literally disallows it. It's a subtle but intentional visual cue of dominance. Propaganda never internally comments on his weight, but they don't have to do it anyway. The image speaks for itself. Perhaps the most cynical aspect of using fatness as PR is how it plays against the people's own aspirations. In a land of deprivation, being well-fed is a dream for many. By appearing as the ultimate well-fed Korean, Kim positions himself as what success looks like. It's almost a cargo cult approach to leadership. Look prosperous to be seen as bringing prosperity. People might think only someone as fat as Kim can be their most respected leader. In the propaganda scenes, his presence is messianic. The provider now has arrived. Abundance will soon follow. His weight underscores this religious narrative. He himself is living proof of abundance. Historically, dictators have sometimes cultivated a distinctive physical image to project power. Think of Churchill's cigar and stoutness as projecting bulldog determination, or Stalin's pockmarked moustache. For Kim, part of his brand is being the chubby guy who nonetheless commands a nuclear-armed state with swagger. It's almost as if he's daring the world. I can overeat, overindulge, do whatever I want with my power and to my body, and you can't judge me. The weight becomes an affectation of invulnerability. There's a theory among some analysts that Kim uses his excess as a way to mock Western sanctions by showing that he can still get luxury goods and live large despite efforts to undermine his regime. Every visible pound on him is like a sanctions-busting trophy. In the kingdom, the leader's obesity isn't seen as ridiculous, it's portrayed as righteous. Kim's physique has become part of the language of power, a silent propaganda piece that speaks volumes about who has plenty and who has not, and why that's supposedly how it should be.
News outlets are reporting that North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un has died. TMZ was the first to report the news, writing North Korea's supreme leader, dictator Kim Jong-un, has reportedly died or is on his deathbed with no hope for repercussion, according to media outlets in China and Japan.
Every good theatre has its plot twists, and North Korea's weighty drama is no exception. In 2021, observers noted something different about Kim Jong-un. The supreme waistline appeared to shrink a bit. Photos during that time showed a noticeably slimmer Kim, his face less puffy, his matching grey Mao-style suit fitting more loosely than usual. Naturally, this set off a frenzy of speculation outside North Korea. Was Kim ill? Had he finally heeded a doctor's warning to shed some pounds? Or, in the fertile imaginations of conspiracy theorists, was the Kim on camera even the real Kim at all, or some random body double? Inside North Korea, the regime faced a conundrum. For years, they had implicitly championed Kim's stout image, but now he looked different. Remarkably, state media addressed Kim's weight loss directly. In June 2021, North Korean TV aired a segment featuring a Pyongyang citizen expressing heartfelt concern about the leader's changed appearance, saying people were heartbroken to see Kim emaciated. Citizens were moved to tears by worries over Kim's health. This was an extraordinary admission by the regime of two things. First, Kim had indeed lost weight and people noticed. And second, the people love him so much that his weight loss makes them sad. Instead of inviting relief that maybe the leader was getting healthier, they spun it as if the nation collectively sighed. "Oh no, our beloved leader is dieting. How tragic!" The likely intention behind this messaging was to garner sympathy for Kim and to portray him as sacrificing along with the populace during tough times. Remember, 2021 was a year North Korea hinted at food shortages due to pandemic border closures and bad harvests. By suggesting Kim was looking thinner, they implied he was perhaps eating less or sharing the pain of the people. By doing so, the regime likely aimed to quell wild rumors and reassure people that Kim wasn't seriously ill. If North Koreans noticed the weight drop and no official word came, the vacuum could be filled with dangerous gossip. Was Kim suffering from a deadly disease? And then, who will succeed him? By preemptively having a citizen voice concern on TV, the state both confirmed Kim's well-being and elicited empathy. It's a propaganda tactic to portray he as the martyr-like father figure who sacrifices his health and fat for his country. So, whether Kim's weight goes up or down, it is always a propaganda win for the leadership. From today's perspective, the most plausible explanation is that he deliberately did it for health reasons. Carrying 300 pounds of body on a small frame in one's late 30s is a cardiac time bomb. South Korea's intelligence later reported that Kim had lost around 20 kilograms, roughly 44 pounds, by 2021, and they found no signs of critical health issues. This implies it might have been a calculated weight loss, not a sudden illness. However, the regime couldn't very well say, yes, the marshal went on a diet because he was too fat. Come on. The word diet practically does not exist in North Korea, since everyone has been on a lifelong diet since the day of their birth. Besides, that would undermine years of fat is good mythology. Thus, sympathy was the angle chosen over overt praise or denial. Back then, in the absence of solid info, the outside world's imagination ran amok. One particularly sci-fi theory was that the slim figure wasn't Kim at all, but a body double. It all started when Kim vanished from the public eye for about 3 weeks in April 2020, even missing the Day of the Sun. It was a nearly unprecedented absence and led to a blizzard of reports and rumors that he was gravely ill or had died after a botched heart surgery. When he reappeared in early May 2020 at a factory inauguration, looking pretty much the same as before, the rumor mill didn't die. Some insisted the May Kim was a body double because he looked a bit different. Then, during the 2021 weight loss period, the Kim is dead conspiracy gained traction again on social media, and even some tabloids. People compared before and after photos like a spot the difference puzzle. His hair parting is different, his teeth look different, he's wearing a different watch hole setting. All sorts of evidence were floated to claim the real Kim was maybe dead or incapacitated, and a doppelganger had been installed. It sounds like a bad thriller plot, but such is the aura of mystery around North Korea's leadership. However, there is no credible proof of a fake Kim, and South Korean officials publicly denied this rumor. In late 2021, after assessing Kim's health, South Korea's National Intelligence Service stated that the weight loss was genuine and that the person seen is indeed Kim Jong-un, not an imposter. They used AI and facial recognition analysis to compare images and found it consistent with the real Kim. Of course, die-hard conspiracists might say, that's what they want you to think. But realistically, the simplest explanation is usually true. Kim lost some weight, period. It's worth noting that 2 years later, Kim appeared to level off or even regain some weight. The combination of chain smoking, heavy drinking, and overeating forms a trifecta of stress coping mechanisms that also double as regime-coddled vices. As long as he remains functional, the regime seems content to let him indulge. After all, the visual of him indulging is part of the show. If he gains more weight, the state continues the narrative that a big supreme leader means a strong nation. If he loses weight significantly, they'll likely craft another sympathy or working so hard he's thinning story. Succession is the ultimate taboo topic, but everyone knows a sudden health crisis for Kim could destabilize the regime. Therefore, projecting an image of health, or at least a controlled, intentional change in health, is crucial. Perhaps George Orwell couldn't have dreamt up a more bizarre, yet real scenario. a cult of personality so strong that a diet becomes a matter of national emotion. One could say the North Korean people live and die vicariously through Kim's fluctuating waistline. And that, dear viewer, is the theatre of the absurd that is North Korean body politics. Kim Jong-un's symbolic fatness is far more than a personal health matter. It is a stage prop, a narrative device, and a tool of governance in one of the world's most Orwellian regimes. We've seen how his body has been deliberately wielding and presented to serve multiple political ends. In North Korea's grand pageant, Kim's physique is stage-managed just like the mass games or a military parade. Every pound up or down is meaningful. His obesity is no accident of lifestyle alone. It's entwined with statecraft. This is political obesity, puffy by design. A dictatorship props itself up with a mythology of fatness, while its people endure lean times. It is hypocrisy at its most literal, telling your population that their revered father figure works night and day for them, even as he gorges at a private banquet. But the brilliance of it, from the regime's perspective, is that it seems to work. Many North Koreans, shielded from the outside world, likely genuinely interpret Kim's appearance as a positive sign, like a laughing Buddha, a symbol of plenty and continuity. Fatness became a trait of the Paek-2 bloodline. When you lack real achievements or moral authority, you manufacture them through symbols and spectacle. Kim couldn't fight a revolutionary war like Grandpa, but he could appear as a copy of the man, heavy-set and all. He couldn't openly tell people, "I will make you all prosperous," but he can embody a fantasy of prosperity by being the only visibly well-fed man in the room. It's cynical, it's tragic, and yes, it's darkly funny. The next time you see a headline about him gaining or losing weight, you'll know it's not just a tabloid tidbit. It's potentially a shift in North Korea's carefully scripted performance. In the hungry halls of Pyongyang, the leader's shadow looms large. In a very literal sense, he has put the weight of a nation's ideology on his shoulders and belly.